The views expressed here are those of the authors and do not in any way represent the views of SafeerTV.
Assalamu alaikum, hello and welcome back to another episode of Ladies First. I am joined here by my panellists Francesca, Tamara and Saida Sabah. Ladies, I'm just going to go straight into it if I may. What's hitting the headlines lately and what stood out for me was the rise of lone mothers, especially going for IVF treatment. And what stood out for me was the fact that many of these ladies are single women, and the statistics say that the number of single women has almost doubled as the search for Mr. Right has kind of gone pear-shaped. So I wanted to know, what are your thoughts? And let's start off with, why do women struggle to find males, potential husbands? Let's be honest, as always. I don't think it's a phenomena that just strikes Western women. I think it's a general thing. So what is the problem? Francesca, what is the problem? Your opinion?
You should know.
Shouldn't I? Let's fix the world single-handedly. I think it's a little bit more complicated, that. I mean, I think our times have changed, and now we have women that are, women want to go to university, they want to have a career, they want to do the travelling, and then by the time they get to that age where they're ready to settle down, quite often, things become more difficult. Guys have got married sooner and that sort of thing, and they find themselves in a position where they are able to do everything else, but that one thing of obviously having a child and having that family, that is the one thing that becomes the biggest problem. And for a woman, obviously we've got a biological clock, and that clock is slowly ticking down, and we become very, very aware of this desire to have children. But the reality is that quite often, for whatever reason, you can't find a suitable partner. Why that is so difficult, I don't really know. I mean, relationships are complicated.
Because we prolong it so much that we become very specific and particular about what we want.
Yeah, and I think it's a false misconception that you can have it all.
And but you kind of said it as well. You kind of mentioned it that we focus a lot on career.
Yes.
On that's what's expected of us anyway, and that's what we want.
Absolutely.
That's what we look for. We want to be successful. We want to have successful both in career and personally as well. And then men, by the time we reach that age, perhaps like mid-30s or something, men usually are looking for younger women to marry. I'm talking mostly about perhaps Asian and Arab men. I'm not sure about the rest.
Well, maybe generally men have more of a pool of women that they could choose from. Yeah. I think there is undeniable fact that males, there's more males than females, and there's so many women clamoring for that one person. Males can be more selective. A male friend of mine who isn't Muslim was saying that he was somebody who looked a certain way and was like, well, actually, I don't want that. I think I want this
something
one.
Different.
And there were people there that he could go to, whereas with us, it's different. And I think maybe we were kind of sold a story that didn't work. I remember I was told that you go to school, you go to uni, and then you should hopefully find your soulmate or your spouse, because going to uni you would find like-minded people, there'd be more of a selection, and by the time you go to uni, especially in our community, many of the males are already paired off or at a minimum engaged or speaking to somebody.
Or the other way around, or they're just too young. You go to uni when you're 18, 20.
And they're not financially
they're
secure
still
or
young
things like
and
that, so that
immature
becomes an issue.
And they're not ready for marriage. So it's also the other way around.
And I think women also feel that we have to kind of protect ourselves. We can't rely on, getting married. Marriage is no longer a for life situation. Things happen in life, so you need to almost tie your camel as best you can, be in work, maybe get a property before you get married. A lot of my single friends are doing that.
I've seen a lot of sort of marriages around me that haven't been successful. I think that instills an element of fear inside you as well. Do you really want to, you're not sure whether you're choosing the right partner or you're not sure what you're doing. I think it's quite frightening, especially these days. I think there's a lot more marriages breaking down than ever before. And I've seen it firsthand. And that in itself is quite frightening. Can you find the right partner?
Our expectations are also higher.
Yeah.
No. But is that
we've got to be realistic
bad
as
thing?
well.
Necessarily.
Well,
I mean, before it was the first person who comes through the door, if they...
That would do.
That would do.
Or the parents would arrange it for you,
Exactly. Whereas now you're like, well, maybe
I
more
want a
have
guy,
sense of
I want a doctor or a lawyer.
It has become more complicated. I mean, people are looking for a lot more physical things, like I need a house, I need a property, I don't want to work. It's a lot of
but then he's got to be
things.
funny, then he's got to be intellectual, he's got to be all these things.
Exactly.
And it's like,
and
okay.
I think that sometimes what happens is we're not willing to overlook certain things, we're not willing to compromise, and it just makes it makes it more challenging. And I think that women are, we're so used to being independent and having, if we want something, a woman will go out and work and she'll buy that car for herself, she'll buy that house. So that role of a man has become it's
less
a little bit
less.
It's become a little bit, men and women now financially are competing against each other, whereas
most
traditionally
definitely,
a man was the
provider.
Exactly, and she would benefit from that, but now men and women financially are competing with one another. So things have changed.
I don't even know if it's competing, it's just making sure that you're okay, you're getting the same pay for the same job that a male would be doing.
But I think we've moved towards a society that is very individualistic, as in what can I get for myself? We don't have, we do, obviously within the communities and stuff, but we are moving more towards it is me, myself and I go out and get a job, I buy my own home.
And it's very competitive as well.
It is very competitive.
But males also don't, if you go up to a male and you ask what kind of person are you looking for, they're not going to say, well, someone who's, been waiting for me to grace them with my presence. I'm looking for someone who's been to uni, who has ambitions, has lived like, I'm just maybe
Actually,
one
first
example.
thing will be beauty, and then second thing will be ambitions, and then third thing perhaps. It's also the same thing, the same expectations, same high expectations. That you find in women, you find them different, but also high expectations. From men's side.
I was speaking to some of my colleagues who aren't Muslim, and I was putting this question out to them because it's a worldwide phenomenon that where are the men? The question is where are the men?
But then when do we get to meet the men? I mean, you work in full time, you finish around 7 o'clock, you get back, you're tired, the only time you perhaps see a man is on the underground. Do you get me?
Oh yeah,
exactly.
Well.
You'll have to go, probably that's what's happening. People go online to meet people, and it's not the natural way when you get to know each other over a long period of time, and then he will fall in love with your personality eventually, because usually what happens with those online dating or those blind dates,
it's almost like a put on, isn't it? You can be fake, as fake as you want.
And the first impression is what matters. You always have to look amazing and presentable, because that's the first impression. So you've got to look beautiful, you've got to have look confident maybe, I don't know, maybe not too overconfident, because that's intimidating for the guy.
Become like that.
Yeah,
and
you
also
can't be too
modest
smart.
as a female, you can't be...
Yeah, however, but how it used, I don't know how it used to be, but the natural way should be is that we interact and over a certain period of time.
I think it was a lot more gradual
before. Thing, and
now
then he finds
much,
exactly
our pace of life is so much more faster.
It's become corporate. It's become very sort of
corporate.
It's a business transaction.
You get a CV,
it's a business
transaction. Do you fit in this list that I have?
Exactly.
It's a list, and you have to tick it basically, and then yes, okay, he fits the criteria, she fits the criteria.
It's like we are being micromanaged in life. Everything we're doing, we're micromanaging.
I think our attitude towards marriage has changed quite dramatically as well. I mean, I know obviously within the Muslim community, marriage is a really big thing for us, and we still really, want to believe in it and invest in it. But I think because it's so easy to just, okay, we're divorced now, well, never mind, let's just... Whereas years and years ago, like my grandparents' generation, they were married 50, 60 years.
You worked at it,
well, they had
that's
no
what I'm
choice.
saying.
Even if you didn't like each other, you could
But that's what I'm saying. So I think our attitude has changed a lot. It's like, okay, so how many times have you been married? Oh, okay, well, sure, 5 or 6 times. Oh, never mind. It happens. So our attitude towards marriage has changed. And I think quite often when we get married, people are, I wouldn't say necessarily flippant, but we've become a lot more accepting of, okay, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
I think for the Muslim community, for a girl, it's a bit woman, it's a bit more difficult because you're investing so much and there's so much pressure that you've got to make this work.
You've
you know,
got to make it right from the start, and not just
Exactly.
that, not because
Do you think we're trying too hard almost?
I think we're
It's
trying
that
to.
natural thing that you're saying. It's not there anymore. I think we're overworking ourselves to make everything work. Be it house life, be it
do we
family
have a
life,
choice,
be it
really?
well, maybe not in this country or
No,
maybe in the
forget about this
Western.
country. Generally, wherever you go in the world, isn't it the way
Because
the way
it's such a men's market, it's, let's face it, they could go for a younger, fresher model. They could be 50 and go for a 20-year-old.
Men can afford doing that. They'll still be fertile.
But
They'll
men-
still
Yes,
be-
but then
men have
for the
always
women
done
after a
that. There's
certain
nothing
age
different about
in
that.
our community, if you've never been married, it's really hard. Say you're in your 30s and you've never been married, really difficult. That pool of fish gets smaller and smaller. But what I wanted to go back to was my female colleagues who are non-Muslim were saying that they have the same issue and they have tried the online dating, the friends, the networking, the going to uni, and even they're the ones who are involved in, say, other religious groups, like Christian groups or whatever. They're finding it so hard to find someone. And a lady said to me that she thinks it is that the males are really shy to approach a woman because the culture is, she was saying in England, that women are so, well, as you said, let's look at the CV, what are you bringing? And they tend to humiliate the men who approach them, like, look at you, who do you
How
think
dare
you are?
propose to me?
And then they're the ones who kind of get, well, where is everybody? But I personally think, where are the men? There is a shortage.
I don't know.
Because
Is there a
most of the men-
shortage, or is it just simply lack of facilities, like for men and women to actually meet?
Or is it that we're
I
just so
don't know.
judgmental that we just
Well, that's
don't
what I'm
allow
saying. I mean, is it our
him to come?
criteria?
Our
Yeah,
criteria
or
is
just
Are we getting too material, too materialistic? I want to have a doctor, and he's got to have a house, and this and that. I mean, women think of security first. Men think of perhaps, well, is she attractive? Is she not?
Well, if you go for demographics to do with age groups, if you were to step into an Islamic centre and look at 30-year-olds, most of the men would be engaged or married. Whereas with the women, they're still finding someone or they're just starting a career. So where are these men? I have to say, where are they all hiding? Anybody know?
I think the good ones have all been taken and they're quickly snapped
The
up.
good ones are.
They're all snapped up and the rest are just kind of left.
So do you
You
think...
don't mean to say that about you men who are not married. You're good too.
But maybe the men are being picky as well, because if you're saying that they are out there, maybe they're waiting for Miss Perfect, the one who's never been married, doesn't have children, everything, the movie star kind of person, even though they want to be religious, but they still want their movie star person. I think that could be something as well. Are men becoming redundant? Are we too good at everything?
I think that's another factor as well. Definitely, I think us women are too out there. I think we're we've got too much masculine energy. I feel anyway, because we're going out there, we're working like men, we're trying to be equal to them, and then we kind of lose our femininity at the same time. I think it's really important for a woman to keep her feminine touch. I think when we become competitors with men, it just gets a bit. I think you lose that. I don't know. Maybe I've got a wrong way of thinking. I don't know. But I just
don't
feel
see it that way.
I just
see
feel
it.
that a woman needs to maintain a femininity as well.
But we
'Cause
are.
it's
Just
a-
wearing a
it's a
hijab
man-
doesn't it make us
Yeah,
look
It's a
How's that
man's. I
related
think
to
if you look at the way a woman is made and a man is a provider by nature. By nature, he is a provider, and he likes to provide for a woman and for the children. That's by nature. So if you go to those core sort of, how we should be. I don't know whether I should say should be, but just
what we're comfortable with.
I don't know about comfortable. I don't know about
It's
comfortable.
what
I think
what our personality, what our nature
yeah.
goes for. Women are naturally nurturers, and men
Yes.
are naturally providers.
absolutely, yeah.
That's why men should go out hunting. And we
Oh
should
no,
sit down
thank
and-
you.
I don't. I just think I think as women, we just burden ourselves way too much than we should.
But do we have a choice? I mean, we're in the West. We've got mortgages to pay for. There's school uniforms to pay for. you know, God forbid you should be
But
a single parent.
But I think in Western society has changed, whereby families are not catered for. They are not the most important thing.
Business,
you know,
it's money.
we have changed in this country. Before it was the nuclear family and then your extended family, and that was the core of society. That is what kept society running. Strong families produce strong children, and it went off in that pattern. Now we have moved towards, actually, you don't need to be married. There's no reason to be married anymore, because you can have everything that you want financially and all of those things. You can have a child. You can have a child without a man. You can go
money, because now in the new government that we have, you know, they promoted the family and marriage.
They are, but
at the same time, they still expect to be
exactly. The outside is saying something completely different. With my mum and dad's generation, my mum didn't have to work. I mean, my mum did, but my mum didn't have to work. My dad's income would have been sufficient for her to stay at home.
It's impossible now if not both
you can't.
of them
Both parties need to work. So then the focus of family is taken away, and what becomes important is your material things. Do you have a house? Is your child
That's what you're aiming for.
And that's
day in, day out.
Our mindset has changed.
But sometimes, you know, you could follow a recipe, Francesca, as you well know, well, we all know, and it doesn't work that way.
Course.
So we're going back to these women who are seeking IVF treatment. Do we blame them? Because, look, you're 35 years old, for example. You've been doing everything you can to find a partner. You can't. Biologically, there's a natural urge, and say you can financially provide for that child, that you want to be a mother, because you don't know how much time you have left. Is it wrong for them to seek?
What happened to poor kids who are in orphanages and they need a
well,
loving
Tamara,
parent?
it's really difficult, even with fostering and adoption.
I know it's not the same. It won't feel the same.
Easy.
It's not the same as having
But
your
the
own child.
procedure is
life.
so long.
And the procedures are long. Probably.
It takes 2 years. I mean, it depends on where you live, but 2 years. God forbid you should be divorced. They also want to speak to your ex-spouse.
Or if you're a smoker, you can be turned down.
Do you have a spare room? Because the child needs to have
That's
their.
true.
So all these children, yes, they're out there, but it's so difficult to. And also Islamically, we have an issue with,
adopting, but we're not necessarily
and
going
even
to adopt
fostering.
by name. Yeah.
No, but even
Fostering
the
is not a
mahram
problem.
issue. The mahram issue, if it's a male after a certain age, do you start wearing hijab after they reach a certain age? And if you have daughters, how do they? So it is a tricky one, but I can't honestly say that. I feel sympathy for these women.
Yeah,
biologically,
no
it
doubt.
is their right to have children. And the fact that, the numbers have doubled doesn't surprise me. Is it selfish? I don't know. What would you think? Is it selfish to put yourself in a situation?
Can't judge.
I really can't judge. To have and to want children, it's a very, very strong biological desire. It is an urge, and that is, some women have it more than others. And for someone to turn around and say, well, I don't think you should do it because, there's no this around. I mean, I know plenty of marriages that have broken apart. There's been children involved, and one of them's ended up raising those children alone.
Yeah, but here you're actually choosing from, you're deciding the child's future from the beginning, from zero. You're going to be within a single family, single parents' family. Is that right?
And also,
do we have the right to deprive that child?
But then I don't think I've got a right to say, because I mean the thing for me is, okay, so think of those circumstances. So this person decides to have a child. Well, you don't know who is also going to influence that. I mean, maybe they've got a fantastic support network. I don't know. Is it the same as a father? No, not necessarily, but I don't know. It's a really...
Again, like you said, there could be couples that live together, have children, they separate, and
they
children
but then
depend
that's
on the
not
mother.
a choice. It's
So-
not something that you choose to do. Bad luck. Things
But
happen.
also Islamically, let's just bring it from an Islamic perspective. Not that we're scholars, but if you're going for IVF and you're a single female, that person's donation that person is not a mahram to you. So isn't that going to be problematic?
Definitely.
That person isn't going to be halal for you because
he's not touching you.
Absolutely, but
yes, that's an interesting argument. He's
impregnated
not
with-
touching you, but
you're carrying his child.
exactly.
his DNA and stuff.
And will a
I
child
get
in
you,
future
but
know whose
yeah.
father is there?
What is mahram? I mean, do you get me?
So that would be
how is that
interesting.
Will the
going to
child in
affect
future
you?
know whose father is as well, or her father
I don't
is?
think legally that at this stage they have a right to.
No.
But I think Islamically it brings into the question of, okay, pregnancy should only be allowed in certain circumstances, which involves one, you being married, the union being recognised Islamically, and
Yeah.
from that comes the blessings of children. And this situation here completely turns that idea up on its, upside down on its head. Now, I think for us, the majority of marriages would say that being a single female and going for this course of treatment would not be, what's the word? Palatable, acceptable. I don't think you would get any support from them. And that's the majority of the marriages. Of course, there's always other schools of thought, etc. But the fact that a woman, and this stuff is expensive, by the way, this course of treatment, it's close to £8,000. You've got to decide what borough you're in. It's not always successful. It's quite traumatic. You've got to prepare your body for this with hormones. And then you could have twins, you could have ectopic pregnancies, etc. So for a woman to be that determined to make that decision that she's going to go it alone must not be an easy one.
It's not an easy one, and I think there are, like when you're talking about Islamically and stuff, there's bounties in having that family and having that child. And yes, okay, it doesn't work out and things like that, but those elements on Islam reckons that those elements are what are needed in order to raise
The healthy
a healthy
family.
But
family and
surely,
things like
again,
that.
going back to if our religion covers everything, surely this is a medical progression, a progress that allows people with those needs to fulfill their potential.
But there is no medical need when it comes to single women wanting to have children. It's simply a choice.
How else are they going to have?
Get married again.
I mean,
Well,
we would
where
say
to
get
who?
married.
Where are the men?
Exactly.
As we said.
Process.
It's not the last. To get me, it's not the only option that you have. Oh, if I don't do this, then. Do you get me? I mean, it's not like it's not a medical condition that you have.
But isn't it a right of the women, as we said? And I know of some people that they are Muslim and they got married purely for the reason of having the children, but they were not interested in the person at all. And then after that, they got a divorce. But they said, that was the only way that they could fulfill their need.
Yeah.
And I find that really quite sad, because now you have to deal with explaining to the child where they came from, etc. Maybe this is a more scientific way, a more cleaner way of...
But it isn't a cleaner way,
isn't,
because you've got children that end up, I've seen articles about it, and I know for some people it works and for some people it doesn't, but there is that possibility that child is going to turn around at 18, 19 and say, I want to know who I look like, because I look nothing like you, you're my mum. I look in the mirror and I can't, it's like we all do it. For example, you might look in the mirror and say, okay, well, I know that this feature is like that parent, or I know that my sibling looks like this and we look the same, we have these same characteristics. And as a human being, we have this really deep desire to want to belong to something. And yes, okay, you have your mother, absolutely, that your mother is your mother, but to not...
There are complications both
That's
ways,
what I'm saying. It's
basically.
not
So
an
if
easy
you
route.
marry
Exactly.
and you
It
get
isn't an easy
divorced,
route.
if you get married and you do get divorced because you just want a
Exactly.
child, then because there's complication of, or does the husband, maybe he wants to keep his child, maybe he wants to have the continuing relationship with him. If you don't do that, and if you go for the IVF, there's the other
My whole
thing
issue
of the
with
child
it is the
himself
Islamic-
wanting to know.
Well, let's hold the
I think.
thought and we'll
Yeah.
come back to it.
Yeah.
Do grab yourself a cup of tea, some biscuits maybe, and come right back. We'll see you later.